Bam. Ready to roll? Okay. Vertical Diet podcast. Week number, not sure what week it is, but Q&A. We've got a lot more questions in this week. Stan Efferding and little Stan Efferding. You might hear him or see him running around through the video. Along with Damon McCune, registered dietitian, exercise phys, PhD. Our questions came in this week, and it looked like a lot of the stuff that we get asked about a lot of the time. And I kind of want to put it into a top 10 life-changing tips that we don't make any money on. And we might throw in a couple that we do. And it's actually kind of now evolved into about 15 things. So I wanted to kick off with probably the most important thing, and that's going to be the CPAP. The CPAP is something, of course, I talk about a lot. If you've got apnea to any degree, this is life-changing. You'll wake up the next day a new man. You'll be out mowing your lawn and cleaning the gutters and painting the house, and it's like a 99% fix for people who have trouble holding their breath while they sleep. And the new one, the Dream Station in particular, is awesome. I just went in and had a sleep study done a few months ago. I do that every now and then just to kind of learn a few new things and make sure everything's optimal. And they hooked me up to this machine. And when all was said and done the next morning, of course, I already used it, so I was able to check the readings on it and see what the average pressure was. And then when I went back to visit the doctor, the sleep doctor, she prescribed the reading that was on the what is this called again? The Dream Station. So if we would never recommend you not to go to the doctor to get a sleep study done, but some folks who can't afford it, or it's too time consuming, or even as I've seen in some socialized medicine countries over in in Europe and Australia and Canada, sometimes they say if they don't have severe sleep apnea, they won't be prescribed a machine. They'll just be told to lose weight. And of course, a lot of my athletes that I work with don't want to lose weight. They're powerlifters and strongmen, etc. Besides that, it's not always about weight. I mentioned before that Jordan Fagenbaum was only 198 pounds and from Barbell Medicine. He wears a CPAP. He's got a thick neck, and that's just the crowding of the airway that tends to cause the problem. So what I do is I just went on Craigslist and I picked one up for $500 because if you go to a CPAP store, they're like $1,200. You used to be able to buy masks too at medical supply stores, but they managed to lobby the local governments and get them confined to prescription only, and so a $70 mask is now $300. So I usurped that, much to the chagrin of the medical community.
Yep, this is not medical advice, but there's a lot. The time we're in right now, there's a lot of people that are repurposing these for ventilator use and so on and so forth. Mercedes actually, was able to fashion that with some of the CPAPs that they have over there. So awesome job, Mercedes.
Yep.
So this is one of those things like he was talking about. If you don't necessarily qualify for the prescription, there may be opportunities for you to still get one, and it may still be beneficial. But we're not saying to circumvent the medical community to do that. So
yes, as a credentialed professional, he's not saying that. But as Mr. Bro Science over here, hop onto Craigslist, get yourself a CPAP. It's life changing. It comes apart. This little dude here, I travel with it. It's really light. It weighs like about a pound. And it's really quiet. It's just like a mist of air. You don't even hear it. It's not very loud. And then it has the humidifier that comes with it if you want to use that. Here in Vegas, I need that. But in most cities I travel to, it's humid enough, so it's not a big deal.
Why don't you talk about the mask?
Yeah, I've used a ton of masks over the years. And I've kind of settled in on this really comfortable mask that's got this like a rubber fitting. I like the full face mask. I've tried the nose cannulas. I've tried the mask just for the nose. And this one seems to be the most comfortable. You're going to have to kind of try and find out which one works best for you. A lot of people, when they initially start using this machine and they have the mask on, they feel like they're having a hard time breathing. A couple things contribute to that. One, they have a ramp feature on this, which will give you less air and gradually increase the air over a number of minutes as you get comfortable. I've found the ramp feature to be uncomfortable. I found it feels restrictive, so you feel like you're trying to suck in air and you're not getting enough. Also, what I've done is if you have a little bit of anxiety about the whole mask thing, is you can breathe in and then lift the mask to exhale. And then breathe in and then lift the mask up a little bit to exhale. It'll be on your head and you just lift it with a little bit of the pressure. These are elastic bands that go onto the head. And after doing that for maybe a minute, you tend to start to relax a little bit and it becomes much easier. I'm obviously well used to it now. I've been using CPAP since the mid-90s. And I use it regularly. I'll use it when I nap because otherwise you're going to wake up more tired than when you went to sleep. So that's the CPAP, that's the mask. One of the things that I wanted to talk about was that pulse oximeter. What does that thing do?
So this is basically reading your oxygen saturation levels through pulse detection. I believe that one uses an infrared. And so that can link up to various applications to kind of give you an idea where you're at. Yeah.
But this reads your pulse, and it also reads your oxygen saturation level. That should be on average between 95 to 100 throughout the day. When you go in to get a sleep study, they put one of these on you, and it's hooked to a meter, in addition to a whole host of other contraptions to measure your heart rate and your breathing and all that. But they're trying to determine if your blood oxygen level gets too low during night, which obviously is going to impair recovery to not have oxygen in your periphery. And so this is one of the ways they do it. They have these that hook up to like an iPhone. Mm-hmm. Although they're all sold out right now.
Right.
Because of coronavirus again, people are using these to find out if they've got an elevated elevated heart rate or low oxygen level. It can be detrimental to the immune system and everything else. So I also, as a secondary note, like to look at the heart rate monitor. I actually do this every morning. And I used this probably 20 some years ago when I was working with Les Gutches at Oregon State University. He was just a fantastic wrestler. And I had him use this it's kind of a lagging indicator for overtraining. Nowadays, we try and be a little better predictors of potential overtraining. But if you wake up in the morning and your resting heart rate is 10 beats above where it normally is, that's a good time to take a day off. Probably an indicator that you're overtraining. So although it's a lagging indicator, I still use it, and that'll tell me whether or not I need a day off. But it's a good way to try and tell if you have some degree of apnea. Alternatively, I've had people take their iPhone and put it on record and on the audio on record and set it next to your head at night. And then in the morning, you can watch and see if you have long durations of where you're holding your breath or snoring. Because obviously, if you snore and wake up tired, there's probably a good chance that you've got some degree of sleep apnea. Mm-hmm. So those are just some methods by which you can self-diagnose, which is not recommended by the professionals, or just a way that you can kind of gauge whether or not you're getting optimal oxygen, whether or not your heart rate is ideal. So, and you can't talk about CPAPs and all that other stuff without talking about noise. So remember, we got to control the light with blackout blinds. We want to control the noise. We want to obviously have good breathing. We want to control the temperature of the room. All of those things are really critical for good sleep. I love these 3Ms. These are the ones you see guys wearing on the tarmac with the airplanes.
Yep.
They've
or
got
at the shooting range.
Yeah, these are the ones. And you just put these on, and that'll take a 6-year-old kid right out of your life, just like that. So I actually do use these, much to my wife's chagrin when the kids were sleeping with us, and I wanted to get a good night's sleep. So that's kind of my combo for sleep improvement. What's next on our list?
Let's jump into the supplements. We're not huge on supplement promotion, but there are a few that we deem that can be valuable. First one is dextrose powder. And so dextrose powder is just glucose. It's a monosaccharide. It's sugar. And so we use this a couple different ways. You can use it post-workout to help recover and replenish your glycogen stores, but we also will use this for athletes looking to gain weight. If you sprinkle a little bit on your rice, it will increase salivary amylase production, which can potentially help with digesting the carbohydrates a little bit more efficiently. So potentially take more in.
And again, we're not using it to drive calories. It's not like just pouring cups of this on there. We just sprinkle a little bit on, and it makes you able to eat more rice, which is really what I like to use to drive calories for weight gain for athletes who are looking to gain weight, or to support huge workloads. Mm-hmm. 2-a-day CrossFit type exercises, maybe 2-a-day bodybuilding, strongmen kind of things where you have to maintain a massive amount of weight. I've found, and this is just me personally, and I did hear Chris Masterjohn talk about this, and whether or not the mechanism of action is scientifically sound, I might not get a full support from my professional here. But what I've found is that if I sprinkle a little dextrose on it, it makes my starches easier to eat. It seems as though some people who eat a ton of starches, in this case we'll just say rice or potatoes, might end up not being able to digest it as quickly or as efficiently and get a little bit of bloating. But when you put a little bit of dextrose on there, it tends, I've experienced that, and my athletes have also experienced, they digest it a little better. They're hungrier quicker. They can eat a little more at a sitting. So that's kind of how I use it.
Yep.
We've seen Jay Cutler over the years has talked about how he loves sushi. Sushi is sugar rice. A lot of people don't realize that, but it's sugar rice, and it's you definitely can eat more of it and digest it faster and be hungry sooner. And that's kind of what we use it for. It's post-workout mostly. I'll add it to maybe a little bit of orange juice to get a dextrose fructose blend. We've talked about in the Vertical Diet ebook, and it's just kind of a strategy to help you eat more food or get a more optimal recovery from your workout.
Exactly.
Yep.
And it's really inexpensive.
It's next on our list.
Thermotabs.
Yeah, salt in general. Might as well throw the nuns up here. It's all the same thing. I've said that 500 milligrams of sodium before and after a workout. We've talked about that. The ISSN supports that. NSCA supports that. In addition to salting all your meals to taste. And people always ask me, well, how much? And in addition to salting your meals to taste, the current recommendation is 500 milligrams of sodium before and after training. And that's a quarter teaspoon of salt. And I used to just put that on my tongue and wash it down with water, but it's nasty. I can't stand it. So I went for the thermotabs, and it's just buffered salt. That's all it is. I love the taste of the Nun tablets, but they can be pretty spendy. This is like $6 a tube. I had over $100 habit at one time on Nun tablets. I was drinking them like crazy. I was putting them in every glass of water. And we actually recommend these, and we talked about this previously, for weight loss.
Yeah.
I found that in between meals, because Nun tablets are sodium bicarbonate or baking soda, and that has had some evidence as being effective for limiting the amount of lactate buildup during training. Unfortunately, an effective dose of that often disturbs people's digestion.
Very much.
So that's not what we recommend it for, but just popping one or two of these into a glass of water between meals seems to suppress the appetite.
Yep.
Baking soda will suppress.
And it gives you some flavor, So for those of you that don't like just plain water, you can, you're dropping that into water, it'll give you some flavor.
Yeah, I love these. I travel with them, so if I'm on an airplane, I've got a glass of water on the airplane, I pop one of them in there and I drink that. I always like to get sodium with my water. But mostly I'm popping thermotabs before and after training. That's one of my favorites. We're going to put links to all of this stuff in the information section. And again, it's not a link to my website. It's going to be a link to Amazon or wherever else we find these things. And we don't make money on any of these, so it's just helpful tips.
So the other things would be magnesium and vitamin D3. Both of them are really common. They're both really inexpensive. The D3, most people are found to be vitamin D deficient, and so that's where the vitamin D comes in. We mentioned these at length in our ebook as well. So the vitamin D is something that's probably pretty beneficial for most people, and it's probably not going to hurt people.
It's hard to get from the diet.
Right. And depending on where you live, it may be hard to get outside. You don't necessarily need to be outside to get your recommended amount, but if you're living in the northern latitudes, you may have some issues with that, especially if it's cloudy all the time. So,
and there is some good research to suggest that those people who are deficient in vitamin D, who then supplement with vitamin D, can improve their immune system and recover from colds faster. But if you have adequate vitamin D and you start megadosing this stuff, probably no additional benefit, and may even be harmful because it increases calcium absorption significantly.
Yep.
And like 20-fold.
It's considered a fat-soluble vitamin, so you'll store that, and you can get to a toxic level, and nobody wants that.
No. And it's also mentioned that if you take it more frequently as opposed to less frequently, it seems to be of greater benefit on a daily or weekly basis as opposed to massive doses on a bi-weekly or monthly basis.
Yep, that's something that you're going to have to take on a regular basis, and you want to take it with food that contains fat, so it will help with the absorption.
And just bro science here, I found some people have given me feedback that when they take it at night, they might have a little hard time getting to sleep. So I just recommend take it in the morning. I don't really have a whole lot of research to support that, but it's just from feedback from many clients.
Yeah, and there's not much to give on mechanism there, but just understand that vitamin D, when it's activated, is actually a hormone in the body. So that could play a potential role.
Yep.
Really quick on the minerals, you also don't want to overdo it on these. A lot of people right now are overdoing it on zinc and magnesium, trying to fight off and build their immune system. That's not going to help you build it up. So again, in the absence of a deficiency, it isn't going to do anything.
In the Vertical Diet ebook, I have 2 great articles that covers every type of magnesium, what they seem to focus on most in terms of whether it's relaxation or how absorbable it is and whether or not it's good for sleep. And that might be a better reference than but citrate, generally speaking, is a pretty easily absorbable magnesium. One more on your side for next on our list.
So earbuds, solid set of earbuds. So these are AirPods. These are stands. I use an Android, and I actually prefer using Jaybirds if I'm using earbuds, just because they sound amazing. They work really well. You can actually get a pair of truly wireless for I think $70 right now on Amazon. But any of them are going to be great. So what's your recommendation behind the earbuds?
Well, as early as a year ago, I thought anybody who wore these was a real cheese dick, and my wife thought I was just the worst in the world because I came home with these. And she's like, "Oh my God, you're not going to wear those." But I happened to be flying on an airplane, and the guy next to me popped this out and popped them in his ears. I'm like, "What are those?" And super cool, convenient, lightweight. This thing acts as a charger, so not only are these charged, but this will recharge them. I travel a lot. So this became really convenient. And then I started noticing that I was able to kind of multitask during my 10-minute walks or bike rides by listening to podcasts or talking on the phone or what have you. So I wear them all around, and also so I don't have to have my phone on speakerphone in the middle of the house, and my wife gets frustrated when I'm listening to Tucker Carlson or something.
Yeah. If you haven't used earbuds before, if you're an over-ear person, I have the over-ear headphones, and those are great for noise canceling. But in terms of convenience and usability, earbuds are really hard to beat.
Yep, good one. So next on our list, let's jump into the thermos. Let's throw that one out there.
Yeah.
I've talked about this a million times. We don't even get any money on this. Get these for $20 on Amazon, and you guys already know the secret. You can be cooking your breakfast and cook an extra breakfast or two and pop it in here. Take it with you. I did a whole video where I showed you how I prep my meals, put them into thermos so they're nice and hot. They'll stay hot for like 10 or 12 hours, so I'm not toting around plastic Tupperwares with cold chicken in them. I'm always eating hot food. If I go pick the kids up at school and I got to take them to a sports event or piano lessons or whatever, I take one of these with me, and then while they're at the event or whatever, and I'm due a meal, then I can eat and I've got plenty of food.
Yep.
I always think it's funny when I talk about how life-changing this is to people, and they're looking at me all crazy because not everybody eats 6 times a day, and they probably don't think it's all that big a deal to have to wait for the next meal, but it's a big deal for me.
And these are life-changing just in terms of travel. We both travel a lot, and we'll take these with us, and we're never looking for food. You've always got something that you enjoy eating, and it's appropriate for what we're looking to do. The one thing that we don't have here, because we donated it to the cause when Thor was winning in the Arnold, was the funnel. So you can get a wide mouth funnel for these to help put the food in there.
I dropped my only funnel off to Thor, but there is a funnel that fits right in here. It's like a jarring funnel or a canning jar or something.
Wide mouth canning funnel, yeah.
Yep, you can get them on Amazon. They're like $3 or something, which goes right in with our next item, the Monster Mash tool. You've heard me talk about this before. Again, these are on Amazon. Walmart carries these too.
Yeah.
Mine tipped over and fell onto the burner, and so it's a little melted. But these things, they're awesome, so you can make the Monster Mash.
Yeah, and they're only a couple bucks. So.
Yep. So last on our list of little items here before we move on to the outdoor items is the BB Go white rice. This stuff's amazing, and everybody's been out of rice. And I went to Costco, and they were out of the big bags of rice, but there was a whole pallet of the BB Goes there, and I was like, who's not eating the BB Goes? It's about a cup of rice, and it's in this little container, and you just peel this back about an inch, pop it in the microwave for 90 seconds, and you've got about 300 calories of rice. My favorite thing, I just travel with these. I'll throw a bunch of them into my bag along with my frozen meals, and then wherever I land, I've got a microwave. I could cook up a Monster Mash and add an extra rice to it if I'm so inclined. Usually leg days, I'm loading up on extra carbs. And what else was I going to say about that?
It's 300 easy calories.
Yeah, these are only like $4 or $5 now for 8 of these was $5. So they're not too bad in terms of price either. So that's the last of the indoor items. We're going to switch over to the grill next.
Yep.
See you outside. All right, next up on our list of 10 or 15 or 20 or whatever life-changing tips that we don't make any money on, and 2 that we do, is the Otto Wild Grill. I got this a few months ago, and I paid retail. I ordered it off their website. I saw Sean Baker using it over and over again. I kept watching him cook up these awesome steaks. And so I ordered one. I looked on their website. I think it's autogrills.com or something. I'll put a link down below. And I started using this thing. It's absolutely amazing. You turn it on. It runs off a propane tank. It comes in the box, and I set it up within like less than 5 minutes. It's completely assembled, All I did was hook up the propane tank and put the racks in, and I was ready to go. You turn it on and light it right here. It lights, and within 3 minutes it's 1500 degrees. And then you put your steaks on this little tray right here, which I haven't cleaned, and you pop it in here. You've got a tray down here that you fill with water that's used as a drip tray, and the flame comes from the top. And if you go to their Instagram page, you'll see a ton of great videos of it working. And then this little handle here lets you adjust how high or low the grill gets to the flame, and you cook it. I probably cook New York steaks on there maybe 4 minutes on each side, and they're done. And I can get 4 decent sized steaks on there, trim the fat off, and the things are cooked perfect every time. I have a really nice built-in grill here. It's a $2,500 grill that I use to store my tools and my salt now, and because it always flamed up and burned and dried out the steaks. I will tell you though, the biggest tip for cooking steaks, and I've researched the heck out of this and watched a million videos and read a million articles, most of those guys that are winning those barbecue competitions, the number one thing they all say is that you want to leave your steaks out and make sure they're room temperature and dry before you cook them. If they're wet or cold and you put them in here, the temperature change, the rapid temperature change causes them to toughen up. And so we make sure and set our steaks out. Might even dab them with a paper towel if they come real wet from the grocery store, and then leave them out for at least an hour, sometimes even 2 hours, to get them really nice and room temperature. And then I put them in here, and the outside gets grilled, kind of like that Ruth Chris crunchy exterior that you cut through with the knife and you hear the crunching of it. But the inside's nice and pink, and it stays real fresh. I cook a bunch of steaks at once, and then I throw them in the refrigerator in a Ziploc bag so that I can come out anytime during the day and just reheat them in 2 minutes. When I do it this way, of course using my Costco steaks, which always reheat real nice, they're always really, really tender and still nice to eat. Where most reheated steaks, microwave steaks, would be tough and nasty. These are really, really good, so I eat them every day. I probably eat over 2 pounds of red meat a day, steaks of some sort, or bison burger or something. So this has been a real game changer for me. Next up, let's go out and talk about a couple things in the gym. Okay, next up on our list of life-changing things that we don't make any money on is, of course, you know about the 10-minute walk. 10-minute walk can't always happen. Sometimes the weather is bad or it's cold. Hafthor up in Iceland, you know, when it's snowing, he doesn't have a chance to get outside. In his garage, he has a bike, whether it's a recumbent bike or a stationary bike. I picked this thing up on Craigslist for $200. It's just a Schwinn. I like the little computer reading here because then I can kind of track the tension, and I can look at a clock. What else am I testing on here in addition to the tension? Oh, obviously the seconds that I'm spinning. It doesn't really do heart rate that well in this thing, but it's not that important. It's not really for what we're promoting. Isn't necessarily that it's for exercise or for burning calories for weight loss. We promote it for a number of things. You've heard me talk about with the 10-minute walk, is for digestion, for blood sugar control. Those things to me are a lot more important, and just the frequency of it really helps with the joints. This is how I rehab my knees. I started on this bike thing over 10 years ago. I've mentioned with Mark Bell, whenever I was training with him, I would do a heavy leg day on a Sunday. And then on Monday, I would ride this bike 3 times throughout the day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner for 10 minutes. And I would do maybe 30 seconds of a decent kind of pace under modest tension with 30-second rest. Now I've worked up to where it's like 40 or 50 seconds with a 10 or 20-second rest. And over time now I've increased to where I've got usually a 4 or 5 level tension on here. And that's just a matter of conditioning over time. It's like my 10-minute walks now are really brisk. I'm swinging my arms and I'm walking really fast. Initially, when I was 300 pounds, when I started doing them, when I retired from powerlifting, I weighed almost 300 pounds. It was a very slow walk, and it was just about all I could do to, to muster up a little bit of energy to do that. And then I lost, it was like 40 pounds in 40 days, and I went from almost 300 to under 250 within just a couple of months. And now I maintain, really great joints and really great blood sugar. My digestion's excellent. I even recommend this for people who are trying to gain weight. And historically, I used to say, don't run if you can walk, don't stand if you can sit, and don't stay awake if you can sleep for people who are trying to gain weight. I wanted to try and reduce all of, extracurricular activity. But I found out that it was a lot easier for me to digest my food, and I was hungrier sooner, and I could eat more food more often if immediately following my meal, I did a little 10-minute bike or a 10-minute walk. Dramatically helped with my digestion. So That's what we recommend it for. Whether you put it in your garage or you replace your easy chair with it in front of your TV, you can sit in your living room and watch TV while you're doing it, or get your iPhone out and watch your 10-minute videos. But I do this every day, 3 times a day. I've been doing it consistently for at least 6 years since I retired from powerlifting, and I was certainly doing it relatively frequently as long as 10 years ago for recovery from workouts. So this is a big one for us. The 10-minute walk, 10-minute bike ride, just a couple $100 on Craigslist or wherever you can find a little bike like this and pop it into your living room.
Yep. Really easy on the joints.
Yeah, that's the best thing about it, is my knees feel incredible. I'm still walking out with no knee wraps and no sleeves, heavy squats, and I don't have any knee pain at all. But I intentionally do this when I get done with my 10-minute bike, and like I say, it's about 40 seconds of actual pedaling with some modest tension. With a 20-second rest, I'll do 10 of those. It's like a little HIIT circuit. And when I get up, I feel this little pump in my legs. I always refer to it as a baby pump. Yeah. But there's no eccentric loading, so I'm not doing any additional damage. I can still recover from my training, and that I use it to actually accelerate my recovery so I can train again in 72 hours, or at the most within 3 to 4 days I could do another big leg workout, which I might not be able to do if I wasn't doing this kind of frequency and volume of pumping blood throughout the body. And I recommend that for every joint. The more blood you can pump through the joint, the faster it's going to heal and the better it's going to last long term. So does that wrap up our...
It does.
It wraps up all of the items that we don't make any money on. But there's 2 that we do. One of them is the Vertical Diet and Peak Performance ebook with my co-author, Damon McCune. All of the stuff that we talked about today and many, many more. 225 pages with over 200 references to peer-reviewed published research, videos, and articles. Everything that you need to get you from wherever you are to wherever you want to be, whether it's weight loss or weight gain or improvement in digestion, performance. All of those things are in the ebook. And lastly, the Vertical Diet Meal Prep. If you don't want to cook it for yourself, we'll cook it for you and send it to your house. And we have the lowest cost per calorie of any meal prep in the business. Our world's strongest Monster Mash Deluxe, almost 700 calories for under $7, delivered free to your door. One of our competitors recently offered a 40% off on your first order, and it was still 40% more than our everyday price on the Vertical Diet. World's Strongest Monster Mash, which is about $0.01 per calorie is what we charge. And so come on down to theverticaldiet.com if you want to order those meals, or you can go to stanefferding.com. There's a link there for it. So once again, thanks for tuning in this week. Are you tired yet? All right. Damon, say goodbye, and we'll see you guys next week for Q&A. Make sure and send all your questions. DM to Stan Efferding or at Stan Efferding on my DM, or stanefferding@yahoo.com is the email, and we'll compile your questions and answer them every week.